Why would learning and training the 5 keys be recommended over starting with a complete Qigong set like Dragon and Tiger or Energy Gates?
To begin, each of the 5 keys develops a particular part of the foundation of the internal arts. And when you practice all 5 keys, you get the whole foundation. If you practice a single set like Dragon and Tiger or Energy Gates, then you get a particular part of the system, but you only get a small part of the foundation. If you practice the 5 keys, as I said, you get the whole foundation, and then from there you can see which set or sets become relevant to what you need for your practice.
You say the 5 keys are particularly recommended for high performance types, such as athletes and martial artists, like myself. Since we are already training at a high level anyway, what is it that the 5 keys does for us specifically?
High performance is achieved by activation, development and integration of all of the body's systems. If your muscles are strong but you're breathing weak, you cannot sustain aerobic exercise. If your breathing is strong and your muscles weak, you won't be able to produce power. Each of the 5 keys holds the potential to develop various aspects of your mind-body energy and integrate the whole in a balanced way. Once you've achieved this integration, then you can raise the bar and everything you do improves. Also, within the 5 keys, the very detailed material brings great depth to your practice, and you draw out your weaknesses and you release what is stagnant, repair what is damaged, and upgrade the whole. So this is the idea. In the West, most people look towards trying to increase performance in the single thing that they're good at. In the East, they look at balancing the whole and then raising the bar. And you prevent the glass ceiling from being created. And remember, it's not what you're good at that holds you back. It's your weakness that holds you back. And the 5 keys gives you exercises across the board to develop all aspects of your body, your mind and your energy. And therefore you realize what is weak, root it out, strengthen it, and then integrate the whole.
You say that practice of each of the 5 keys multiplies the effect of all others. I wonder how so, and does that mean then that you must practice all 5 exercises together?
Well, let's start with alignments. Alignments are learned in your standing practice, and also in your standing practice you have releasing stagnant chi, releasing tension from the body. So the alignments allow you to stand with very little effort. You rely on the biomechanical alignments to hold your body up rather than your muscles. Therefore, when the alignments are good, the muscles relax and the tension can drop out of the body. Now, if you achieve this in your standing, then in movement, let's take the circle in hands movement. When you do circle in hands with these alignments, now you're not forcing the body, straining the body, and you're not using excess muscular effort. And so the flow in the movement becomes smoother, more relaxed, which will generate a stronger flow of chi and blood in the body. Now that stronger flow of chi and blood in the body, later when you stand, will warm the body and create the space to release the bound energy. The better flow of blood and chi, the softer your muscles become, the more relaxed your nerves become, and therefore the easier it is for you to access the deeper layers of tension and either sink or dissolve those tensions. So each of the keys folds into each other. From the perspective of breathing, you learn to breathe and release the nervous system, which again aids releasing the tension. And if you put the breathing in your movement exercise, that will aid releasing the tension, and therefore less effort is required to stretch open the body. The less effort required to execute the exercise means the more energy that you're saving, reserving and developing for the things in your life after you've exercised. So each one of these keys folds into the other, and each one affects the other. Now, do you have to do all 5? Not necessarily. And you may spend periods of time where you're focusing on 1 or 2 of the keys because you feel those aspects in yourself are not that strong. And therefore, you'd practice, let's say, the standing and the breathing for a while, and when you feel that your stress and tension levels have reduced dramatically, you may then start focusing on more of the movement material in the 5 keys to get a stronger flow of blood and chi in the body. You may come at it from a different angle. You may find that the movements initially helps you to shed those layers of tension and get the blood and the chi moving, and then later you find more benefit when you stand. You find in standing you can actually release deeper. So the 5 keys are there so that you can find your own way through them and which ones that you need in any specific time or situation. Of course, if you practice all 5 on a regular basis, then you'll build up a very strong foundation for any of the internal arts.
My primary interest is sitting meditation. How could the 5 keys help me with my practice?
Well, there's 2 aspects here. The first is, obviously, what you learn in the standing alignments will be applied to sitting, so that when you sit, you don't shut down the body, which will either make you fall asleep or space out. You'll manage to keep your body open in your sitting. The blood and chi will circulate, and that will keep the mind awake and alive. The breathing work goes directly in as a doorway into meditation by releasing all the tension in the nervous system so that you can get deeper access to your being. And then from the other direction, the movement work of the 5 keys, the cloud hands, the circling hands, this will stretch open the body, release deeper tensions, and prepare the body for long periods of sitting. Through the movements, you'll learn how to lengthen open the body and find more space so that when you sit, it's easier to sustain your sitting practice and remain awake and aware. The biggest problem in meditation is the fact that for most of the time, people aren't actually meditating. They're either spacing out, they're drifting off with their thoughts, they're having emotional reactions, they're not actually meditating. When the body is opened, when the tensions release from the body, and the blood and chi circulate properly, and the breathing is deep, then the mind has the potential to go deeper in and deal with the aspects that meditation covers.
In your Tao journal, you discuss in depth why you want to develop the individual elemental qualities of the 5-element Neigong system. Could practice of the 5 keys help with this level of development?
All learning in the internal arts is circular. You start with the foundation, moving through the basic, onto the intermediate, and eventually to the advanced. And then you link back into the foundation, because however strong that foundation is what will govern how far you can take the art. Now, where the elements are concerned, if your foundation is weak, then you have very little chance of producing and contacting the element itself. So you can practice heaven and earth, but you won't actually contact the element of wood. Whereas, if through use of the 5 keys, you really develop all of the lengthening and open and closing work in the circling hands, when you take that into your heaven and earth, and you start moving the micro-macrocosmic orbits and unifying the whole, then you have the chance of sinking into that practice and discovering the element itself. So your foundation needs to be really strong to support the work that comes later. And if it isn't, you don't achieve what you're looking for. The work with the standing and cloud hands comes from energy gates, which is the water element. And the breathing work and the circling hands comes from the marriage of heaven and earth, which is the wood element. And these are the first 2 elements that you develop in the system. And then you can move on to the higher fire and metal, and eventually to the earth where it's all integrated. But unless that foundation's there for you to begin that journey, then discovery of the 5 elements and the integration of those 5 elements is very difficult to achieve.
Well, I've been training Tai Chi and bagua for nearly 20 years. I noticed that training your 5 keys program improves circularity in my forms. The results have been quite remarkable. Could you maybe explain how these simple component exercises translate to this higher level of practice?
I've met many people that have spent 20, 30, 40, even more years practicing. But the question comes down to, what are you practicing? How well are you practicing? To what depth are you practicing? So the circularity part is simple. When you practice circling hands enough, circularity gets into your flesh and your bones, and therefore will naturally transfer into any other form you do. A Tai Chi form, a bagua form, or other Qigong forms. From the perspective of how do these exercises, the 5 keys, translate into the higher level of practice, is quite simple. When someone's been practicing for a very long time, they assume they should be at this higher level and practicing these much more complex things. And again, the learning process is circular. And when you go from the basic to the intermediate to the advanced and back to the foundation, you actually spiral deeper into your body. Each time you go round the circle, you sink that bit deeper into your body. So coming back to the 5 keys again and again will simply help you hone and refine your techniques, open up the deeper stuck places in your body, release the deeper stagnant chi in your body, and help you to develop everything that you're practicing. When you go back to the basics, you discover how deep they can go. You can correct errors, and you can improve every piece of your program. Then as you move around the various practices, the Qigong sets, the Tai Chi, the bagua, the meditation, and then you come back again to your very basic exercises, you discover what is in the body, what is really embodied. And there's a big difference between knowing something intellectually and having a real good conceptual framework about that, and actually embodying it and doing it at a good depth. So the 5 keys becomes a tool that can root out the weaknesses and strengthen the foundation and advance the higher level of training.